Let's see. Today we are going to just step in and share a few quick strategies. Now, many of you, almost all of you, either know me or have spoken to me. My name is Joni Mitchell. I'm the Light Center Professional Development Specialist and New Faculty Orientation Coordinator. And once a month, the Light Center, comes into the faculty lounge to share a few tips and ideas and strategies with you. But more than that, because many of you are already using these strategies, I would like to hear stories today. So I would like to hear experiences, feedback. What are some challenges you're finding if you are using these strategies? What have you tried? What have you gotten away from? I'm just going to warn you, the slides are a little busy because I had quite a few details to share within these strategies. So we're going to be talking about quick strategies to boost student strategic thinking today. Now, as a reminder, the talk series stands for Teaching Effectiveness, Active Learning, Learning for All. So really making sure we're bringing that inclusive, supported, dynamic environment and knowledge sharing. And that's what I really want to hone in on today, knowledge sharing, sharing your experiences, sharing your struggles, sharing your solutions. Please do remain muted until you are ready to speak, but always feel free to pop some questions, emojis, ideas, feedback in the chat. We are recording as we record all faculty lounge. So if you are not in the faculty lounge drive, please do reach out to me or Dr. Lipo. So you can, if you miss a faculty lounge, you can always go back and see what your colleagues have talked about. And the slides and recording will be in not PD to go because we're going to be getting a new newsletter here at Westcliff University. That should actually say The Wire that's going to be coming up very soon. But you could always find the slides and the recording on Acorn as well. So very quickly today, I just want to take a little look at what is just a strategic thinking. Why do we need to understand what strategic thinking is when it comes to planning our lessons and planning our classes? We want to think about what it means in terms of in relation to student learning and why it matters so much no matter what discipline you're teaching in. We'll explore some practical activities, some quick actionable techniques that promote critical thinking and can be implemented immediately. Okay, so these activities, sometimes they take a little bit of planning, a little bit of prep ahead of time, but no matter what week you're in, what class you're in, what modality you're teaching in, these strategies can be implemented. And then we'll share some ready to use ideas. So you'll leave with your discipline agnostic strategies that hopefully you can adapt and apply no matter what class, what level you're teaching as well. So what is strategic thinking in education specifically? So of course, strategic thinking is the intentional application of reasoning, reflection, and evidence-based decision-making so we navigate complex problems and develop innovative solutions. Now, what does that mean for our students? It means that they are connecting to the concepts that we are covering in class. They're finding the concepts relevant to their current learning and their future careers. They're able to evaluate information critically, right? This is something that many of us have shared in various meetings that our students are struggling with before drawing important conclusions, that they anticipate consequences of potential actions, and that's in their day-to-day lives, that's in within their classes, and hopefully one day within their careers, and that they articulate reasoning behind their decisions. Can they express the reasoning that they're coming to, and what kind of activities can we do to give them opportunities to do that, display that in class, and that they're transferring those problem solving approaches across various contexts. That's so important that our students understand this isn't just for one lesson or one class, that this is a skill that they are developing to go out into the world and use in their careers and in their communities. These skills are consistently ranked among the top qualities that employers are seeking, regardless of industry or discipline. And this is something that we really need to remind our students of. Why are you here? You're here to learn, you're here to engage, you're here to develop yourself professionally as well as academically. It's not just about that paper at the end, it's what the work that goes into that. And I know that each of you here actually does do that. I just have had a conversation with a faculty member earlier today over some of the frustration of really trying to convey that to students and remind them of the importance of what the work that they're doing here at Westcliff. So I'm just going to jump into strategies. The first strategy we love to talk about, of course, is case-based learning. What it is, of course, students analyze authentic scenarios that require application of course concepts, and they identify problems, evaluate the options available, and recommend solutions. The reason why case-based learning works, there's a variety of reasons, and I know many of you in this room can even speak to it better than I can, but it creates context-rich opportunities for students to practice just strategic decision making in hopefully low-stakes environments, right? So that one day they can take it into more pressured spaces. And it's really quick and easy to do. So if it's not something that you've done for a while, if you find that you're kind of sticking to content, maybe from the text or from other sources, and you haven't used a case study for a while, it's really easy to pull a short case study and give them a few guiding questions. It could be a quick activity. You can break it up into groups. You can have them do a think, pair, share with this activity. And what's interesting about case-based learning that comes up quite a bit in the literature is the fact that when we're doing a case study in our courses, we often think that, oh, it's just for my discipline or it's just for this subject. But really, in fact, they go cross discipline. Yes, exactly. Like Dr. Constant, I also like case studies to show how interdisciplinary content is. Absolutely. So you see, I have some lists here from technology, data privacy issues in software development, maybe troubleshooting AI bias and algorithms, ethical concerns around tech product design. All of these actually fit into a variety of disciplines, right? So we might think, oh, okay, that's just kind of in the tech industry, but actually we see that across disciplines and across industries. Same thing with business strategies, to strategic decision making during financial crises, leadership dilemmas, marketing missteps, or case studies on organizational change. Being able to kind of take that in one organization and look at it in one way, and then maybe look at it through the lens of education or look at it through the lens of nonprofit work. These things are not just in individual, organizations that are only specific to the discipline or maybe to the degree that your students are earning. And then education, some topics that we might talk about, classroom management challenges, which are typically around communication, expectations, right? Implementing inclusive curriculum, inclusive spaces, ethical decisions in student assessment and accommodation. So I know Dr. Constant here is here. She could speak to this so much better than I can, but making sure our students understand as they raise in the ranks in education, whether it be K through 12 or higher ed, these skills are transferable across a broad range of work, not just in the classroom, but in the boardroom as well. Dr. Constance said it's also real world and relevant. Students, especially Gen Z, like to see how it applies to what they are doing or going to do in their careers. Absolutely. So here's some discussion questions I want to pop up. I don't want to talk the whole time. I want to hear some of your experiences. What are some real world issues or concepts from your classes that your students have grappled with that they really kind of go, well, where does this apply or why am I doing this? And then how might turning that experience into a structured case study deepen the students' strategic thinking and better prepare them for challenges beyond the classroom? Also might say, how have you used case-based learning to help your students apply strategic thinking? And you can come off mic if you have some ideas that you'd like to share, some experiences that you would like to share.
Well, in order to be able to do that, you have to first ask questions of the students to find out what they do, what they know.
Absolutely.
I would say the first thing should be to identify what are the main issues, what are the problems, and that would be a great help. And then, as you say, you go on into the interconnection of other activities. But first and foremost, we should identify all the issues, whether they are dependent or independent. We have to gain an in-depth understanding before we go to the next stage.
Do you have an example of that, Dr. Sabatu?
Well, in business, now here, if the company is not doing well, the sales is dwindling, employees are unhappy. The first thing that management says is that students, the employees, are not producing as they are expected. But if you call a consultant to look into the matter, they will find out a lot of issues that's related not to the employee itself, but to the system, to the supervision, to the environment, even external environments. That's what she said, beyond the classroom, beyond the organization. How is the world operating? Hey, recently, since President Trump came, it's not only domestic, but even globally. Look at the repercussions that we are looking. That's what we do.
Absolutely. Great examples.
So,
And all of those.
Jody,
Oh, go ahead.
so Jody, I was just gonna say that I've been working with some students recently in education, and we often think, oh, you're an education student, so you're likely going to be a teacher or a professor. But I have some really entrepreneurial thinkers who are actually looking to start up like education businesses. And today, with AI and the idea of really personalizing learning, I can see case studies around a startup business that wants to do some personalized learning with technology. And so I can really see the interdisciplinary nature of the way a case study would engage students across disciplines. And I think that when we do that, you start to have students that have to like talk about trade-offs between cost or data ethics or the impact or user adoption. I think that you have to ensure that there's collaboration. Like, what is it to build a culture? How do we support a workplace environment? How can I in my classroom mirror what it might look like in the workplace? I think it includes ideas like systems thinking. And when we do these types of activities in our courses, I think we prepare them for career readiness. And so the way I approach classrooms is always, what do I want my students to know and do? How am I going to know that I do that? So they can do that so that I can prepare them today for what they might see tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really a big part of it. That's important, right? And I know I've had multiple conversations with a few of you about how are we staying current with some of these trends. Dr. Constant, that's a great example. Great points. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Chuck. Great examples, great points, because that overlap, that I mean, AI is changing everything, right? Like that overlap of the angles that we can look at these various topics. It's like, even like Dr. Sabatu was saying, like if we're looking at employees and we're saying, oh, okay, maybe I don't know, maybe old school would be, okay, you have to crack the whip. But now there's all this generational knowledge about employees. What do Gen Z employees expect versus a millennial versus a Gen Xer? These are really important aspects regardless of your discipline, and case studies can bring that content to life. It can help students to think about problems and even think about solutions that they hadn't, that just aren't a part of their world yet. Professor Gaffney said, I created a choose your own adventure style exercise for different concepts, such as civil rights or civil liberties. At certain points, they have to make a choice, and then they receive feedback based on their answer. Yeah, great question. Actually, that was my question, Dr. Crow. So you are a police officer. They have to decide how to respond to people without violating First Amendment and other rights. How do you create that? Professor Gaffney, do you want to unmute?
Well, I mean, that specific one, I was hired by a textbook company to do it. So they built it out as an online supplement to their textbook. But I think you could just role play in class like I've done. You could do, if you're on Zoom, you could do breakout rooms. And you could assign people different roles. I've also done like in-class debates where they have to take a position, because sometimes it's not clear, as we're seeing in, current events. And I mean, that works really well for political science classes. I don't know, I haven't taught anything else to know if it, or law classes probably, but I don't know if it would work with, but I could imagine business classes, there's like ethical issues that arise, and it might not, where there are competing interests. I think something like that is always really interesting to explore.
And if we're working, in the education department with teachers and future teachers, those issues all come into the classroom, right? All the social issues come into our classroom. So our future teachers that we are teaching now need to understand that what to think, how to think strategically when those issues come up for students. So this is great. Yeah, we love Pearson. I'm going to do a quick Credly plug. Don't forget micro credentials from the Light Center, also by Pearson. But I think that there's also, if you're ever interested in any of the technology for that with your different modalities, please do reach out to me, because we do have some tools that we can recommend that are low cost or no cost at all, preferably no cost. And that's a great way, that kind of choose your own adventure, making decisions, either I love the idea of doing it kind of in a platform, because then your introverted students might have opportunities that they may not have if they're put into the class, and our students do need a balance of both.
Yeah,
So
and
thank you.
I was thinking of it too, like the ones I designed. I tried to use really diverse names and like genders, and this was years ago, because I just, you want to prepare students for who they're going to end up with in the workplace and to be exposed to all kinds of perspectives and ideas. And so I think that's another way you can kind of do that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. You're speaking my language, because when I do teach, it's in the social sciences. So, but also quite a bit of interdisciplinary, application. Dr. Johnson said we have to be able to push back and challenge. Students need to be able to function while feeling uncomfortable. Getting away from gentle parenting version of teaching. This takes administrative support as well. Absolutely. And this is something that comes up quite often. How do we find the balance between being supportive and helping them grow? Because we always used to say, when I taught middle school and high school, even, we used to say, your brain is another muscle, and it has to strain. Sometimes it's going to hurt a little bit. It's not always going to feel good to grow. Professor McCoy said, I own 2 to 3 500+ page books of case studies. I believe that case studies offer my ITPM students with the tools and frameworks they need to effectively plan, execute, and monitor projects. I would also say that now and today, this helps students enable increased efficiency, reduced risks, and improved outcomes. Professor McCoy, can you unmute? I just have a question. Do your students see the value the way you've laid it out here? Or how do you help them see the value of case studies that way?
Good question. So let's see here. Well, this term, I have a risk-based class, and a lot of the students that are in the class don't typically know how a project actually starts from inception. And I felt the need week 2 to start there, to work ourselves where we are today, working with risk and analysis, and so they can find out how it all plays a part and where risk actually comes in. I've used the case analysis Just Walk Out by Whole Foods, Amazon Whole Foods, where it's integrating technology into the stores. It's several years old now, but it has a lot of great concepts that I can mold into almost any discussion as well as a debate. I think that it helps students understand how to think about strategy. I think it helps them understand that all companies have a business need, and that business need is good project managers, good IT project managers, to be specific, aligned with the class. I think that in the beginning, students aren't quite sure exactly what it is and how they can actually have a career and make a lot of money in it. And I think these case studies of showing where companies were, how they made a change, and then the outcome, students really can see the light turn on, like, okay, so how that happens because something that I do. You're correct.
That's good. That's really great application. Thank you for sharing that. And catching when your students are not getting it right away, right? When they, okay, we've read the case study, we get the scenario. Okay, now what is it that we're actually pulling from, that we're thinking about strategically? That's really important. So thank you for sharing that example. Professor Sabatu said we have to show empathy within the professional lines. Also, a great point. It takes balance, right? And that will help enhance the academic appetite of students, right? We want to make sure that we encourage and uphold standards. Absolutely. Professor Santamaria said, I use a concept of compassion with compliance. Yes. Any tips on that, Professor Santamaria, before I move on? Where'd you go? Oh, you're muted. Thomas, I can see you talking, but I can't hear you. Or is that just me?
Sorry. My
Oh, go ahead.
apologies. I was muted. I agree with Dr. Sabato there. Empathy within the professional lines is the same thing as concept of compassion with compliance, is that we can be compassionate with our students, but at the end of the day, we still have to be compliant with the requirements of the class and the requirements of the outcomes and things like that. So it's a tough line. Like I said, it's a difficult balance to be compassionate, and we can do that, compassionate and understanding, but also compliant with the requirements of the class and the requirements of the outcome. So
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Professor Crow said, you care about each person very much, and caring includes that the student achieves the outcome. It's not easy, right? And that's, one of the one of the big debates. Even Dr. Johnson used the analogy of gentle parenting. I could tell you, as a mom of really small children, one of the conversations we have with other moms of small children is gentle parenting versus permissive parenting versus when they have authority versus. And so, it's, you have that care for your students where you just really want to make sure that you're striking that balance, because again, they have to be able to grow, and they have to be able to grow in their role.
and
Okay.
like Dr.
And a quick,
Johnson said, sometimes that requires a little tough parenting. Sometimes you have to be a little tough, parenting to hold the line. Sometimes it shifts back and forth a little bit.
absolutely, absolutely. You have it, sometimes there's a lot of kindness and honesty, right? And that's important. Sometimes we have to remind our students of that, right? If they've had that over coddling experience. I know some of you have told me about students who are, that you have coming straight out of high school, and they've had that kind of over coddling experience. And they're like, wait a minute, though, am I going to get supported like that here? And it's like, I am supporting you. It just might not look how you want it to look. And that's the case with debates too, actually. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
They've got to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's the
Absolutely.
problem.
Yeah, I love that.
They don't want
Yeah.
to be uncomfortable, and it makes them upset. And well, that's life. Because if you're going to disagree on anything, you're going to make somebody uncomfortable. And I always, the things I tell my students is nobody cares about what you think. They care about your supported position. So, and that's what like good debate does, and even good debate prep does, because it forces you to understand the other side. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the other side, but you can't articulate the other side. And getting away from the ideology. I believe this because I'm supposed to believe it because it's the ideology. Well,
Yes.
okay, well, what's good about it? What's bad about it? And challenging somebody's ideology makes them uncomfortable. Well, good. And that's okay to be uncomfortable. That's life. Nobody goes through life 100% uncomfortable. It's reality. But we're not doing our students any favors by not challenging them. Again, that doesn't mean in class, and often they don't know what I think. I got to be the designated bad guy no matter what the argument, because I have to make sure they understand why they think it a certain way. It doesn't matter if I agree with them. It matters of why do you believe what you believe, and that's been the biggest challenge. I pose it that, like, when I was in school back in the 70s, I got into formal debates with professors because that's what they wanted. They wanted you to, and they didn't get upset. Looking back, I had a debate with Ayala, one of the most renowned geneticists on the planet. And you think about, what am I thinking? Well, that's what they encouraged. And so again, got us to think and understand. And I believe that's kind of like, and this is where, even when we talked about the AI part, I haven't come across a teacher that's against AI. It's the improper use of it, and especially the substitution of AI in lieu of critical thinking. I think that's what we're all concerned of. That's what we're all concerned of. But that is a problem, that they're no longer thinking on their own. And this is a major problem that the recent PAC meetings that I've gone to, that hiring managers saying, is that the lack of critical thinking skills. I am, by the way, encouraged, on a side note, we got a long way to learn it, but the Socratic metric, I believe has a lot of opportunities for us. And as far as
Mhm.
replacing discussion questions and so forth, the rollout was horrible. I better say it right now, but you know, none of us are under the delusion that we're going to master this after the first couple of weeks. Everybody just got to kind of be patient with it. We'll get through it. Jody's been my buddy. Jody and I are at the hip, kind of sharing
I was gonna
frustrations
say
and so
I
forth.
have Jody in the room
We're
and
great.
Dr.
Yeah,
Brody
we're great
busting
with
up
it.
on camera. So something being
Yeah,
said is very true to this. Yes,
we're gonna get
Socratic
it. But I mean,
method
Yeah,
metric,
or metric.
and it's
Oh,
proven.
metric. I'm gonna say method
metrics.
every time, you guys. I'm so sorry. Um,
And it's great.
yes,
That'll
Socratic
evolve too,
metric.
but that's something that helps with critical thinking, helps them with their presentation scores. It's got a lot of good things on it. We just got to get teachers better prepared than literally 12 hours before class started when they rolled that out. So
Mm.
yeah, the rollout wasn't good, but again, and teachers, again, we want to be really good before we go into something. But I've been telling everybody that, look, we're really fine. We're going to make some mistakes in the beginning. We're fine. Everything's going to be fine. And I do see it as a good tool in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes. Socratic
Yeah.
metric. If you're interested, do reach out to Dr. Constant. I understand there's quite a bit going on with PLCs and meetings with faculty. So do reach out to Dr. Constant if you want to learn more about that. That's going to be an awesome offering that we have. But yes, I've heard there's a learning curve. That's what I've heard. um,
Very, very, very interesting, and particularly the areas of parenting or parental or we in management we say pa more paternalistic care or maternalistic care, but
okay.
and then you know over here that from the outset we have to make it clear to the students about the policies of the university, especially starting with the attendance. We have to
Oh,
be
that's a big one.
so clear, because if we are lax on the first few weeks, trying to, you know, to make them more comfortable, then that would be serious negative impact on the students.
Yeah. Yep. That
So
was, yeah.
we have to relay that message. It's not the professor that came up with those policies, it's the university that has to be respected about attendance and participation and all the tardiness and all that starts problem. Most of the time, the students, they come late and they try to shift the blame on the school, not on themselves. They have to be responsible, and we have to relay
Taking
that message from
ownership,
the earlier.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Accountability. And that's how we launch some of these strategies. That's why I was earlier, I was asking, Professor Santamaria and yourself, Dr. Sabatu, how do we kind of uphold, and I know many of you in this room have had enough conversations to know from day one, you're going over the syllabus, you're going over the expectations, are we being conscious as educators about how we set the
Right.
bar where it needs to be, so we don't have to wait until week 4 to try to lift them back up over the bar, right? And that's, I
Yes.
want to talk a little bit about debates as well, because as Professor Gaffney was saying earlier, it's a really good way to get students thinking critically about different sides as well. I know many of you use debates. I'm going to roll out a little bit of information here. Obviously, thinking about the process, assigning controversial but course relevant propositions, randomly assigned positions regardless of personal views. I know some of you actually from even the first day of class, you do a student survey, so you already know what their personal views are, so you can even shake those up. Require evidence with citations for all of the claims. Help your students dig into what the literature is saying. Depending on how much time you have. Include structure, rebuttals, and responses. Conclude with reflection. This is such an important part, and this goes back to what Professor McCoy was saying, and I think Dr. Constant was saying. Giving your students opportunities to reflect on what they got out of each of these activities is a really, really beneficial for them. Obviously the benefits for structured debates, it makes them consider multiple perspectives, and that's the getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I have a really great TED Talk I'm going to send to you, Dr. Johnson, as soon as I find it. from an influencer that talks about this. Developing information literacy through evidence evaluation is another benefit, right? They have to evaluate the evidence. Improve logical reasoning and argument construction, and encourages intellectual flexibility. Now, of course, many of you say, oh, I have, so many activities, or it takes a lot of planning, but there's actually different levels of debates. You can actually ask your students to do a mini debate if you give them an activity, and if you're using the flipped classroom and you want to, kind of have a little icebreaker activity at the beginning with a mini debate. Obviously, a more progressive debate where they kind of dive into really developing their arguments. And then there's extended format sessions that you can do. You can actually kind of take those into Gap and use the technology a little bit to where they can even add ideas to what you've done in class. So a couple of reflection questions there. I'm really out of time, so I want to, sorry, Dr. Lipo, but I'm going to go ahead and pop the survey in here. If you want to complete that survey, I can give you directly email you a copy of these slides, and you can reflect for yourself on those discussion questions, on those reflection questions, thinking about those experiences with debates. The last strategy I want to share is reflection-based problem solving. So this kind of goes hand in hand with case studies, but not always. So you'll present a problem, something that's more ambiguous, complex, multiple possible approaches. And again, this is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. You can help your students through guided reflection, through conversation, through think, pair, share. If you don't know what that is, please let me know, where you can kind of help your students work together to reflect on the problem that's being presented. And then have your students share a solution and justification. The most important part is those solutions. How did you get to it? Students need to present solutions with explicit reasoning for their choices and reflections. And walking students through this process sometimes can be really challenging. I know those of you who've done it in the classroom, it can be really challenging trying to get them to think through, how did we come to this problem? How did we come to this solution to solve this problem? Excuse me. And also, I wanted to give some sample reflection questions as a result, because sometimes our students, and these aren't things that maybe they don't want to say out loud, but maybe you have a journaling activity or a quick writing activity. What assumptions am I making about this problem? What additional information would help me solve this problem more efficiently, more effectively? How does this approach connect to previous concepts we've learned? So connecting it back to classes that you've done or concepts you've covered. What potential weaknesses exist in my solution? Have them share their own limitations. And that's really important and really helps with developing critical thinking. And I just want to jump back over to the chat. Lots of good details in the chat here. I'm probably not going to get to all of the comments. Going back to being comfortable, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Dr. Constance said, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is not easy. It takes practice and still happens throughout life. Absolutely. But learning how to debate and provide counter argument is an important skill. It allows students to think critically, use resources, and stretch themselves to consider others' perspectives. And Professor Crow's talking about the rollout. Socratic metric. Professor Wilcher said, I teach my students as if they were part of my executive staff worldwide. Each plays a critical role in the decision-making process. I love that. I want them to look at their contributions in their entirety: ethical decision-making, problem-solving, critical thinking, and execution of company policies and procedures. Many of our students have never held such a position or job. Absolutely. So we must transfer their lack of knowledge to learning. This semester, I've committed my teaching to incorporate more case studies, diving deeper into complex problems we face in business. How's that going, Professor Wilcher?
It's a long journey. It's a very long journey. And I think that it comes with me first improving my skill sets, understanding a little bit the diversity of our students. We have of course, I always talk about language barriers with our international students. So many of the concepts that we do talk about, they are completely unfamiliar with. We have students, for example, from Croatia. I was talking yesterday about Costco's and Sam clubs. Well, there's no transferable industry in those countries that relates to that. So you have to stop for a minute, drill down and say, tell me something in your country that matches something similar to that. Do you have warehouse stores? What are some of the ethical issues that you look at in your countries and how do you handle it there? And then we can have a dynamic discussion from there with the rest of the class. it's a challenge to teach the international students, especially with the language barriers that we have.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's really important to consider, right? And this is kind of one of the realities of teaching is you might set up one of these really great activities, you go into your class and then you start hitting those, you know, that kind of glazed over look in the eyes, or maybe you're online and you're getting one or two lines of discussion, maybe a paragraph from Chat GPT, and it's like, do the students not know? Like, are they what is happening that those connections aren't coming together? So that's a really great example of like how to resolve that as well. um let's see. Okay, so continuing the discussion, have some great discussion questions here in the slides. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Lipo. Just so you all know, the Light Center does offer resources to help you implement these strategies. Of course, you have all of your colleagues here, which is such a huge benefit as well coming into Faculty Lounge. You can reach me directly, or reach me at the Light PD at Westcliff. Please do complete the survey that is in the chat. Your feedback on these activities is so very important as we continue to develop our program planning for the year. I'm going to head and stop sharing. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Lipa.
You can actually keep going. It sounds like everyone's really interested and into this, so we can make this the rest of the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And if someone has specific questions about anything other than this, go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll answer.
Yeah, so these are just a few discussion questions. I wasn't sure how quickly we were going to get through the content, but I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the strategies. I know we've talked about case studies, debates, how's that going? And then I very quickly covered the reflection. I do want to share that the reflection-based problem solving, it's really helpful with these kind of problems that really are not structured very well. Right. And that's where you're really going to get your students kind of like going, okay, there is no right answer. Right. What happens when you give them a problem and there's no right answer? And I know like a lot that's really where we get some of our best strategic thinking. And so have you done reflection activities with your students, and what has that looked like? Because I also know that sometimes there's time issues, attendance issues, gap, wanting to utilize gap. What have you all practiced? And I'll go ahead and pop back to the discussion questions as well. I really would love to hear more of your experiences in terms of, well, especially question number 2. I think that was the one that I was really curious about. How are you currently assessing whether students are engaging in strategic thinking rather than simply memorizing content? That's a big one for me.
I believe that, being able to teach just the content is not enough. We have to not only teach content, but we have to teach context. And from context then comes comprehension. So I think that just allowing memorizing the content will do no good if they don't have something that they can tie the A and the B together to come up with a different solution. So I think we have to teach content. I think we have to teach context, and then we have to teach comprehension.
Follow the Capri method.
I do.
Absolutely.
I do.
I know you do.
Capri method. Yes, I do.
You said content, context, comprehension. Professor McCoy says assess, assess, assess.
Part of that, Joni, is, we have to figure out how our students learn. Because some are visual, some are auditory, some have to write it down, kinesthetic. And you're not going to get that primarily directly from them. They're not going to say, hey, I'm a visual learner. Yep. So that goes back to what I said earlier about asking them questions. And it's not just a one-off. And to go with Dr. Johnson's comment about making them comfortable with being uncomfortable, I will ask very weird questions, intentionally weird questions that are seemingly not relevant,
Mm-hmm.
to get answers from them that I can then use in what we're doing. And yes, Joshua, Professor Kane, the VARC is really good. And oh, Dr. Johnson, I'm drawing a blank on who you went to school with, who teaches for us, full-time faculty member. It's what happens when you get old. She actually did a presentation on that.
Cannon, Dr. Cannon.
Yeah, Dr. Cannon, thank you.
Dr. Yeah.
And you know, just because I was doing a class operations management, we're talking about the statistical part of that. And again, they have no concept on most of these. And so I asked them questions like, how long do you sleep? And they did this in a poll everywhere. So I had the results and we could put them up. And then I actually showed them how that question was a nominal measurement, how that question was an interval measurement, and so forth, so that it's something that they could relate to. And that's as long as we can relate it to what they can understand, we can bring them along with us on the journey.
I agree. Are you all like, what tools you mentioned Poll Everywhere, Dr. Lieb? I'm curious what other tools this group is using. Are you doing Mentimeter? Do you use Miro? Is there one maybe in your industry that you're having students use with different activities to kind of map out strategic thinking, or even for other other types of activities that you do?
It depends on what I'm doing, but everyone else should chime in as well.
Whiteboards, obviously, we always talk about Zoom because it's here. Now, if you're online, or if you're doing kind of a hybrid, you know, the whiteboard is very useful. I really love Mentimeter. I can't plug it enough. I love Menti. I think that there's so many great applications, and they're constantly improving. They're constantly improving. I feel like Poll Everywhere has gotten a little stagnant. It's great if you already have your Poll Everywhere set up, then you can use those. And that's something that I always try to encourage when it comes to technology. You know, don't be like Professor McCoy said. He has a book of, I think you said 500 plus case studies. Sometimes just even switching out one of those, but still kind of using the same method and the same practice is helpful. I think that's really important. Let's see. Who else? I feel like calling on somebody. Dr. Broding, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Long time no see.
Yeah, since like I was at your thing the other day.
Like 3 days, yeah.
Yeah.
Case studies. What do you want to say about them?
I haven't used them in my own classes. I've worked on them for Westcliff curriculum. So I can't really speak in like my own classes because I've been teaching the 1 hour online cohort program. We don't really have enough time. It's very difficult to get stuff even covered for the student questions and covering assignments and stuff like that in a short time period. So in theory and based on all the podcasts I listen to, they sound great, but I can't speak from my own experience.
I was more thinking about your LXD. I was picking on you because for anybody who doesn't know, Dr. Broding is a member of our LXD team, and she's amazing. And I know she knows all about case studies in the classes that she helps to build and design. And I think that it's one of those things where there's definitely a skill to it. And that, you actually brought up a really good point about timing, because sometimes, you know, one of the challenges, of course, is if you have students who aren't reading, then how do you catch them up? You know, we've had that conversation in a few spaces this year. Let's see. Sorry. Professor Kane said, I use whiteboard primarily to list the class agenda before class. So the first thing students see when they log in. That's really cool. That's a good use of that.
Can you elaborate on that? What is it?
So the whiteboard, I'm assuming, Professor Kane, are you talking about the whiteboard in Zoom? Yeah. So whiteboard is a function in Zoom that you can open up and write on. You can share the whiteboard so students who are actually in the class can do whiteboard activities as well. And if instead of having your slides up, you actually have something kind of written out or typed out. You know, I've even been in seminars where the presenter has the whiteboard up, they'll list the agenda, and then there'll be a question at the bottom that just says, which of these are you most excited about? And they give permission to everybody to put a little shape or heart or check mark or whatever to, you know, the item on the agenda that they're most interested in learning about. Dr. Johnson said there's two types. One, some are timeless, which is why our old organizational behavior class had 10 editions, but never changed the case studies. Okay. Some are relevant because of the timing and being more current. What is the best tool to use with the whiteboard? Because I use my mouse and it writes like I'm having an elliptic fit. Yeah, thank you, Professor Kane. Text function. So on the whiteboard, you can do text boxes and then just click in them and then type right from your keyboard instead of writing with the mouse. That's usually the function that I like. Let's see if I can I make a whiteboard? I have a few minutes here.
You should be able to.
Thinking about it. Oops. I haven't used a whiteboard in quite some time. Can you all see my whiteboard?
Yeah, and we see the mouse moving around.
It used to be that whiteboard opened up in a new tab. And now it opens it up in a new window.
Is yours zoomed in a lot?
It might be.
Yeah, okay, because we couldn't see that at the bottom there.
Ah, okay. All right, so do you see my little window over here? Can you see that?
No.
The little bar? Okay, I'm gonna pop a screenshot in there. So it was hidden. And of course, this is why you do it before you come to a live session. Open up the whiteboard and play with it a little bit. So that T at the top, it's gonna let you pop in some text. Here is our agenda, ... Also, when you go to share it, I don't know why it won't let me share, Dr. Lebo. I'd have to check the settings on that. If you share it with your students, so that's the way you can actually, there's a little thing down here, you can switch whiteboards. If you have multiple whiteboards going, you can allow them to add shapes, add text. If any of you use a whiteboard more recently than I have, please tell me. But it's a really good, once you get in there and you get into the tools, it can get really, you see my white, sorry. It's really helpful for adding and engaging. There's a tool called Miro that I like that's a little bit better. I'm not going to pull up a Miro board because I don't have anything prepped. Obviously, one of the negatives about technology is you want to make sure that you have everything kind of prepped ahead of time. So we will close that. Any other questions? Feedback? Reflection activities? How are your students reflecting? Let's see. Who can I call on? Dr. Atwi, are you there? Did we lose you? Might have lost her. Okay. Professor McCoy says next week I'm going to have a breakout session for students to create case studies using their AI and then share with the other teams to debate. Professor Crow said, will the students be able to use AI to refute the AI generated contentions? Professor McCoy, oh, we have a few minutes. Can you unmute and share a little bit more about that? I'm very curious about that as well.
Sorry. I was.
Have you built out that lesson yet, or is it something
You
that you're
know
like,
what?
I know this is what I'm
That
going to do?
just, I'm constantly putting things together, and that idea just popped into my head. We had debates last week in general communication class, but I have all these cases that are in my books here, but I just thought of something of using the AI function, integrating it into the class, and having them create a case study and about risk, and having debates. I'm going to be the devil advocate in that, in creating more dialogue and context. I didn't see Professor Crow's, will students be able to use AI to refute you know what? I can't tell, but I know that in the live debates, everybody is talking. So I don't see a lot of folks actually looking at their monitors, because they're speaking, they're rolling through their thoughts, and it's just coming out. And that's what I like, because no one is looking down. Everybody is, I think that everybody, they have this idea of wanting to be different from someone else anyway. And that peaceful argument gets them to really, really saying a lot of things that actually are strategic, and some that could be kind of just out there, but it gives me the opportunity to assess and kind of either mitigate some of those things that has fact and some strategy, and some things that are kind of just too far-fetched, but to kind of put myself in there and kind of put some sort of reasoning and ideas, and then take it back to the course and what you should have read in order to successfully create those case studies, and understand what things you need to implement, things you shouldn't implement, things that don't make sense. So I'm thinking that it will be more of a live debate. Once they create that AI function or that AI case, we're going to then go ahead and just talk about it. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about. But it will be tweaked. My classes are Tuesdays and Wednesdays this semester. So by Tuesday, I'm sure I will have more content maybe to share next Friday.
Awesome. I would love to hear about that. I love, what Professor Crow's talking about, what she brought in about, will they use AI? And I've been reading a lot about, what's the phrase? Somebody in this room is going to correct me, so please feel free to, human in the loop. Because now we have this problem where AI is generated and then somebody responds using AI, and then and so it's really important to have human in the loop. Somebody from COTE should correct me on that. I will Google it and send it to you all, or I'll attach it to the, if you fill out the survey and get the slides, I'll attach it to the email. But it's an interesting concept in terms of kind of thinking about how are we making sure, because of course everybody says, oh, I use AI, but then I edit it. Well, how much do you edit it? How much are you, or even in your prompt writing, right? Professor McCoy, I love that you mentioned like taking the course content and, kind of comparing, like, how are they using the course content to develop their case studies, right? Are they missing any important perspectives in the case studies that they're creating? So I think there's some really good endless opportunities in terms of kind of critically thinking about generating content. And of course, you're generating something that will be able to be used for an activity. So that's great. Professor Crow said maybe a debate between ChatGPT and Grok or other AI. I think students would love that, actually. Student is model. I read one in many of the articles. They do need to know the stuff for themselves, right? And that's the kind of the practice of having them come back and be critical about what the AI is producing. I think that's just, it's such an important skill. Let's see. Okay.